Can you hear us okay, Laura?
Yep, I can. I can.
Great stuff.
I love all the crowns.
All right, we are live streaming to YouTube. You are all now live on Candid Camera. Anything you say may be taken in evidence.
This is
Even with this one. I think I'm going to get a neck strain by the end of the evening. Sorry, what were you about to say, Laura?
Nope, it's all right. It's all right. I was pondering finding a crown, but I decided that would be mad.
That's up to you. No one will judge you, crown or otherwise.
Okay, at this point, I think I'm going to leave it to you folks. Have a wonderful time. When your other speaker arrives, you need to make them a host, just like everybody else, but I'll leave that in Richard's capable hands. And
okay.
I am now going to leave.
Have a lovely evening, Alex.
Bye,
Good
Alex.
luck, folks. Have a great one.
Thank you. Has Alex already made Laura a host?
Yeah, I'm co-host.
I promoted Laura to panelist.
Oh, panelist. Okay.
Which I think means co-host.
I can share my screen, which is the important part.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's what we were trying to achieve. Do you want to test that while we're here, just to check that we can see you and everything? Your audio sounds fine and what have you, which is great.
There are some rhinos.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Right, let me just.
That's a really lovely picture.
Oh, it's a standard Microsoft one, but it has some elephants occasionally, and I love elephants, so.
Very
excellent.
Nice.
Right, let me just set my screens right up for the demoing. I've done this session, always recorded. This is the first time I've had to do it live.
Okay.
So hey, it could all break. How is everybody?
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
How about you? How are you finding presenting? Sorry, the first time you've done this session? Have you had to do other sessions in lockdown live like this?
Lockdown, I've done more sessions than I would normally do.
Oh, really?
Yep. It's been kind of a bit manic. My other half said to me, "You do know, darling, you can say no, don't you?" It's like, yeah. He said, "Well, how about you start saying it?" Okay.
That was the perfect opportunity for you to then say no. How about you start saying it? No. Well, I didn't mean now. Fantastic. We've got Aaron as well.
2 speakers.
2 speakers, no waiting.
I feel like for the fantasy element, I should have. I even know. I have a D20 somewhere, and I'm not entirely sure where it's gone. But I feel like we've rolled lucky because touch wood, things seem to be working.
What you are about to say, you shouldn't say until. Have you heard of Murray Walkering it?
I have indeed, yes. But
do you want me to go and? I'm liking your backdrop, Mikey.
It's Warwick Castle, so it's appropriate for where we are today.
Very nice.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good yeah.
Just wondering what's on top of these shelves. I think it's a ukulele. Maybe I should find a backdrop. Very nice.
You just Google Warwick Castle in TV. There's loads. That's genius, mate. It's keep bigger.
Yeah, I've managed to find lots of pictures of Warwick Castle.
Strangely, the background.
So Aaron says in the chat that he's having volume issues. I'm not sure if that's issues hearing us or issues speaking. I guess as we haven't heard him, I guess it's microphone issues.
So hang on. I think as the host, Richard, you can make Aaron co-host, and that might.
Yes, I've done that. Aaron, can you say something?
Hello.
Speak.
Hi.
Hey.
Oh, I'm
Great.
here.
Great stuff.
Sorry, yeah, I just had to, don't know what happened. Quick restart, I guess.
No worries.
Oh, how is everyone?
All good, all good. How about you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm got my coffee. I've been up since 5.
Oh.
That's mad.
It's a bruiser.
I know. It's seems to be my normal routine nowadays.
Was that up at 5 for work, or was that up at 5
I'm
because
just generally up. I don't know why. I just get up.
Up with the sun? That's fair. I got up at 5:45 and stupidly decided that today seemed like a wonderful idea to go for a run. And
That's
then
a
I
nice
got
day
back.
for it, wasn't it?
It was lovely, and then I got back and my legs hurt, and I went, oh yeah, that's what running does.
Which castle do you have behind you, Laura?
Warwick Castle.
It's Warwick again. Excellent.
I thought that was
You know what? I think I
thought
should
that
find a
was me.
picture of Warwick Castle.
And if I just go over to the window, I'll give you a wave, Laura. Cheers. Turn around.
Very good. No, the other one.
Feel like I need a
Afterwards,
castle
I'm
now.
gonna-
Maybe I'll go rogue and pick a different castle.
Right, let's go make sure. Let's go make sure reports are going to play ball.
That sounds like a good idea. Have we, Aaron, did you want to test and see if you were able to screen share at all?
Yeah. Let me have a look.
Looks good.
Perfect.
Okie dokie. I'll stop. Is it just a case of when I'm on your queue, you just tell me to start sharing?
Yeah, for sure. It's fairly informal, so we're not going to try and do any kind of slick behind the scenes handover.
Okay.
Yeah.
As Alex was saying earlier today, it's very much in tune with the ethos of data relay.
No, that sounds good.
I was about to say that, but then I thought you might not. Like it, so I thought I wouldn't.
We might take it ill.
Yeah,
No, not at all. Quite the reverse.
it was my favorite. It was my favorite conference.
Just come on.
I thoroughly enjoyed. I think it was Microsoft Future Decoded. I'm not saying it was my favorite. My favorite conference, of course, it's Data Relay, of course. And then, of course, followed closely by SQL Bits, another wonderful conference I hold dear in my heart.
I
But
haven't done SQL Bits in person.
SQL Bits is crazy. It's so busy and there's so much going on, but it's a really lovely buzz. Although then I somehow managed to go back to the hotel and fall asleep before the big party, and I'm just getting message after message from Rob Sewell saying, Chris, where are you? You said you'd be here. Chris, where are you? Eventually rock up at like 9:30. So where have you been? Oh, I fell asleep. But
That's gonna be late.
yes, I would say so. Probably wearing a crown. But Future Decoded, they do like refreshments at the end as well, and they ring around on a nice trolley and just kind of leave a big old pot of wines and beers and dot them around the conference hall and just tell people to have at it. It's very, very interesting.
Very nice.
Chris, am I right that that this is just open now, so anyone who has the invite can join?
Indeed, anyone. In fact, we have some attendees already. Hello, attendees.
Hello, attendees. I'm hoping that you can hear me. If you can't, I'm not sure how we'll diagnose that. Maybe say hi in chat if you're here.
Let us know which of the regions of Data Relay thou representest. Maybe we've got someone on the YouTube stream as well. Let's have a quick look.
Isn't Warwick the one with the tower with all of the steps, or is that?
I think, yeah, there is a tall tower. I think it's the tower that's behind me, if you could see the top of it.
It's so tall that we can't see the top of it. I know there's a sort of uncertainty here, which it could be just above the top of the picture, or it could be really like twice the height of the picture. We just can't tell. There's so much of it. Shall I share the
Slides.
slides now? Where have we got? There we go.
You know what we should have a play with potentially? We can let attendees open their mics. Maybe let's have a play with that at some point. Might leave that for a bit though.
Yes.
It's just too much power to give somebody like me. There's a lot to speak.
There we go. Can everybody see that slide?
Yeah, tremendous.
Perfect.
Excellent.
You've done a lot of different sessions through lockdown. Which one has been your favourite and why?
Is that a question? That's a question for Laura.
That's a question for me.
Yeah.
Okay, which one's been my favourite and why? I did Power Platform in an hour, and that was just demo after demo after demo after demo.
Nice.
But I had lots of people ask questions, which was fun because they went, could it? And I went, yeah, but not today. So yeah, that was that I think was my favorite one.
Very nice. Yeah. The Power Platform one being demo. Did they all go well? The demo gods were kind?
Yeah, actually. Or there was one that went horribly. There was one part that went horribly wrong, but that's what happens if you don't save a Power App midway through. But that's fine. I had a Blue Peter version in reserve.
And a teachable moment.
Yeah, it was deliberate, honest. Right, let's
see if this. Oh no, the crown disappears behind Warwick Castle.
Now you're just like wearing a tinfoil hat.
It's got a sort of mitre quality to it. Here's what I might have made earlier.
Oh no.
Don't mock Richard's crown, it'll also protect him from 5G.
That's what I made it for, actually, Mikey.
I thought the vaccine would do that.
Crown stroke Faraday cage.
Yeah.
Do you know who designed the round table of King Arthur, by the way?
I don't.
Circumference.
Oh.
Oh dear,
No, that's just not allowed, okay?
Is the number of attendees still increasing, or is it falling away as you're making these jokes, Chris?
Are we driving people away?
Did encourage attendees to stay for some great talks, not to discourage them with an assembly of dad jokes.
Did I ever tell you about the knight who was in charge of collecting taxes for King Arthur? That's their charge.
Oh, very good. I was about to see if I could come up, if I could arrive at that myself organically, but no.
The answer is no.
There you go. You're already saying no more.
Yeah.
I guess I've just noticed the time. It's that I think that means that we're officially doors open.
Yeah. Doors open.
Hello.
We can let people in.
Well, people have been joining happily, but welcome to everyone who's arrived.
Thank you for supporting Data Relay 2021 broadcast
Absolutely.
from the comforts of our own homes.
We're all in Warwick Castle, really.
Yeah, Warwick Castle's our bubble for the day.
I've got a couple of Mercia facts at my fingertips here.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Would anyone know what it means? The name Mercia.
No.
You can tweet your answers and win it. No, you can't. It means border people, apparently.
Mm.
I've not seen anyone for most of lockdown, so I'm not border people at all.
No.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Rich, we should maybe do that, just start giving stuff away. None of us have budgetary responsibility, so we can give away like 5 drones and a new car at the end of it, and just see what.
Absolutely.
That's the plan.
If we're not speaking with budgetary authority, does that mean that Data Relay is liable or no? That's the only way to find out, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we've got to test these things
To destruction.
Yeah.
You can be asked to do it tomorrow, though, is the question. Or you can be allowed back in tomorrow.
Well, that's a good question, isn't it?
I think I'm just following Data Relay tradition for myself. I tend to do the first 2 days and then leave. Every year that I do this, I tend to do the first 2 events and then somehow get out of the rest.
Well, hopefully you tell them that you're going to do 2.
Oh, no, it's normally that it's because up until recently, I was a contractor, so I was taking unpaid days to do them. It's now being a staff person, I think I don't think work would be too objective to me going on tour with Relay for a full week now. But before it was very much kind of financial, being a contractor.
I thought you were perhaps going to say that like Chris, you'd fallen asleep after day 2 and had not made it to the end of the conference. Sorry, Laura, I interrupted.
No, that's all right. It's all right. I've just switched from being contractor to full time as well.
I did that during this year.
Switch?
Sorry, say that again.
How are you finding the switch?
Really bizarre. I'm working for an American company in a team of lots of Power Platform people who don't really understand Power BI.
Nice.
It's entertaining, if nothing else.
I kind of like it. It's doing consultancy, so there's a lot of similarities. I just kind of, I think I've got lucky with the group that I'm working with and stuff like that.
I'm incredibly lucky. I had the opportunity to actually work for a guy I respect a huge amount.
Yeah.
And I sent him an email about 3 months ago going, any chance you got a job? And he went, yeah, which was nice.
Very nice. I'm very lucky because I'm probably in the position where my employer would pay me to go on the road with Data Relay.
Cool.
Because they would most likely be a sponsor.
That's got to be good.
Indeed. Not that they will get any mention.
Who'd like another fact about Mercia?
Yeah, me.
Okay, so Offa, he was the first of the Anglo-Saxon kings who might rightly be called King of the English. When did he die?
If any of the
700.
attendees know the answer to this as well, in the chat, just let us know when
In the
you think
chats.
King Offer was offed.
Very good. But just as he died, he didn't say he was offed. This is Offer. This is Offer, who of whom Offer's Dyke is named, which I think is still around because I think there's a Offer's Dyke footpath. Is there or?
Yeah, no. I've walked parts of Offa's Dyke.
It's a defence. Oh, between Mercia and the Welsh kingdoms. I guess that's where the border people comes from.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So it's like a
dreadful.
So it's like a
dip,
English
geography.
Like a dip around like an old Motte and Bailey castle.
No, I think it's a big wall, earthwork, sort of raised feature. Isn't that right, Laura?
Yeah, Offa's Dyke goes all the way down. It's a wiggly line all the way down, all the way down the edge of Wales, isn't it?
But it's a sort of raised earthwork structure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. I learn more with every day. I'm going to go with 1264.
Much earlier. It's 796.
Oh. Put me in my place.
1294. I think we were post. It was England then.
Yeah, I really need to do some more research. Oopsie. Never mind. Cool. We're coming through on YouTube seemingly fine.
Cool.
It's a good thing.
Great.
Beautiful.
Were you guys
Great
on
stuff.
last night?
Sorry, say that again, Laura.
Were you part of the team last night?
I was. Went really well.
That's good.
I was listening and well, actually, yeah, taking the opportunity to listen to the talks without having any responsibilities at all, which was great, really interesting, as tonight's are going to be.
Absolutely. I was at the pub.
I was in theory in New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah.
Under which theory?
Power BI Summit.
Oh.
From New Zealand.
So did you have to stay up and present overnight?
Yeah, last night. Yesterday I did a session at 3 a.m., 10 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Oof.
They were recorded though, so it's fine.
Oh.
So I just had to be there to answer questions. And at 3 a.m. there were 2 questions. That was it. Why am I staying up to answer 2 questions?
Was that one of the questions?
Yeah, it should have been. But no, it was fine.
I suppose as long as the questions are relevant and you feel like you're adding back and really get into them, it's kind of makes it worth it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, one person asked me a question and I gave her an answer and it fixed her problem. And to tell you the truth, that makes it worth it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, big time.
All presenters will go with the same.
Would you like a final? This will be the last one, I promise. Third Mercia-related fact / quiz question.
You've only got like 2 minutes left, so
well, that's
go
what
on
I'm
then.
thinking. Are you spinning out the answer so that you just really make sure that I've only got time for one more?
Well,
okay.
I could go for one.
So I think the Staffordshire hoard found in Staffordshire, not surprisingly, that's inside the boundaries of ye old Mercia, I think. How many items were in the Staffordshire hoard?
Wait a minute, items.
So the nearest 100.
I'm going to say it's either going to be hundreds or it's going to be 3. I
say to the nearest 100. Now I feel like I have to go and find a precise answer. I don't have one. The answer I have in front of me, Pop
400.
Pickers, it's 3,500. Over 3,500 is the answer I have in front of me.
Wow.
Now that's why as soon as I said to the nearest 100, though, I thought over 3,500 doesn't mean that it was 3,500 is the nearest 100. It could have been 3,600. I assume they'd have said that if that was so, but I might be called out on Twitter for the Staffordshire Horde related charlatan that I am.
Oh.
I'm gonna need to come up with some good facts about East Anglia come Thursday.
Yeah. Set a standard here, guys. You gotta come up with facts, apparently.
It's come for the text, come for the history, stay for the tech.
I can't remember which conference I saw it at, but I saw someone do a really good Power BI report that I think was out of a museum in Sweden, and all the data was about their stuff because they opened up their database. I think it was from Sweden.
Oh wow!
So it had pictures and everything. It was great. My PC is going really slowly. Who mentioned that everything was going all right?
Said nothing.
How are we doing for time? It's just 7 o'clock actually, so perhaps we ought to have a.
My laptop is going so slowly, guys. I think I am going to have to do a reboot.
Okay, well we've got a few minutes. You've got a few minutes, Laura, because we've got to just run through a few sort of welcomes and what have you. So perhaps we can do that.
I will be straight back in.
Okay, great stuff.
I haven't got an update, I promise. I've got a spare laptop and it's really stuck.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, so well, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome everybody to Data Relay Broadcast, day 2 of Data Relay Broadcast. If you weren't here for yesterday's talks on Terraform and Databricks, I think you can find them on YouTube. They were really good, so genuinely recommend those to check them out. This evening, we've got a couple of great talks coming up for you. Before we get started, there's just a couple of things that I need to run through with you. So you can see this is what we've got scheduled for this week. Today, here we are, Tuesday in Mercia. If you've only just joined, you've missed some great facts about Mercia. I'm sure Twitter will be alive with them though, so you can probably find them there. We have a code of conduct. The full version of the code of conduct you can see, there's a link to it there. But basically, the very short version, as it says here, is be nice to everyone, be respectful to everyone, and we're going to have a great evening. If there is anything in the chat or in the Q&A or anything like that that you want to call out, that you're worried about, then please do drop me or Chris or any one of the moderators here just a message, and we'll pick it up. Great stuff. I'm sure that won't be necessary, but yeah, just in case that you are. So I think we're just waiting for Laura to get set up. So we've got 2 sessions tonight. Laura Graham-Brown, who's talking about paginated reports in Power BI, which will be really exciting. And then following that, we've got Arun, who will be talking to us about Azure Sql Database. We're just waiting for Laura to rejoin after having a couple of technical issues, but she's sort of sorting those out now and will be back with us really soon. I was going to say I'll turn it over to Laura, but of course I won't because she's not here yet. Any more facts you'd like about Mercia, Chris? while we wait for Laura to rejoin.
If you've got some more, I'll take some.
I don't, I'm afraid. Actually, I should have perhaps prepared some before I offered you some, shouldn't I? I only prepared
It's like
3.
offering me cookies, but
after
not
you threatened,
having baked.
yoink! No more facts for you. No more facts.
So any more dad jokes about Mercia?
Mercifully, no.
Oh, hey. Yes, we did have some good King Arthur jokes previously.
Those are some great King Arthur, and the great thing about the King Arthur jokes, of course, is that you can reuse them for any of the English kingdoms.
Exactly. So everyone, make sure you tune in on Thursday for East Anglia, because you'll of course get probably the same jokes over and over again.
You're hosting on Thursday, are you, Chris?
I am indeed. Yes, it's exciting.
Great. So yeah, that'll really be a whole new set of jokes. Chris has got a gift for the dad jokes that surpasses even my own.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's I learned from the best. That of course being my dad, who's the veritable king of the dad jokes. But I don't scratch the surface. One option we do have is, whilst we wait for Laura to rejoin, if Arun is ready, then maybe we could. Arun, I don't know if you'd be happy kicking us off.
That's true. Arun, are we dropping you in at the deep end if we suggest that to you?
No, I'm happy to crack on.
Okay, well, why don't we do that then to start with, rather than keep our dedicated audience waiting.
I'll screen share then, shall I?
Yeah, do. I'm going to stop sharing now to make sure that you can do that. So if you're here for Laura's talk, don't go away. She'll be back for the second half. She's just having a couple of technical issues, so we're going to swap the session order over, and I'll hand over now to Arun for his session on Azure Sql Database.
Thank you. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Oh, sorry, Arun. Just before we start, do you want questions as they come up, or should we save them to the end?
I don't mind. I don't mind.
And do you need us to keep an eye on time for you?
I should be okay, but I've timed it to 45 minutes roughly.
Great stuff. Okay.
Okay.
And would you be more comfortable with our happy faces watching you, or should we go off camera?
No, whatever you like. Not bothered.
Okay. Great
Happy
stuff.
either way.
Okay. Well, we'll leave you to it. Shout if you need anything.
Okay. Cheers.
Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone. Welcome to my session on Azure Sql Database. Don't expect this to be a level 400 presentation. The aim here is really for me to kind of, not really broad strokes, but to make sure everybody gets a solid foundation within this technology, because it is quite vast, but that is the aim really, just to lay a really solid foundation. Before we begin, who I am, you probably don't know who I am. My name is Aaron. Biggest takeaway here is my email address and my website. They are the best ways to contact me if you've got any questions. That could be within, anything within the data platform, really. I'm happy to answer. So these are the key objectives that we will definitely meet, and I'm convinced that once we've met these objectives, it will definitely lay this solid foundation I keep talking about, and it will give you, the knowledge to go a bit deeper into other areas which are more relevant to yourselves. And it could be something you've got specific around security, or maybe how you should move to Azure. So hopefully it covers all the bases here. Why talk about Azure Sql Database? Well, let's be honest, we're all moving to the cloud. It's I don't know anybody that isn't, and if you've worked with relational classic SQL Server, you're very likely going to hit Azure Sql Database. So there is a change ahead, and it's just all about embracing it and enjoying that journey. Obviously, everything is backed up into Microsoft Azure. Their data centers are all across the world. So basically, just think about it this way: you can build a database solution very easily anywhere in the world. If you're in Europe, or more specifically UK, most likely you'll be building in UK South, and its paired data center being UK West. But obviously, again, this depends on where you are and what sort of solution you're building. So what is it? What is Azure SQL Database? Quite simply, it's a fully managed relational database as a service. Some call it platform as a service, database service. They mean the same thing. And I like this chart here because it kind of shows you now what the SQL Server professional will have to know. You know, we know about all these physical and virtualized SQL servers we've come to know and love, but these blue boxes here indicate the kind of things that we can build in Azure. The infrastructure as a service is literally SQL Server in Azure virtual machines. That is something obviously we won't be covering today. We'll be focusing on that top corner there, the platform as a service, Azure SQL Database. And you can see maybe with the axes as well, you can kind of guess that with this product compared to, say, a physical machine, there's way less administration required. Microsoft have coined this term called the Azure SQL family, and kind of relates a little bit to the other, but goes a bit more deeper, because in the middle we've got something called managed instance as well. Again, I'm not going to be discussing that, but that is kind of, I wouldn't say, I suppose it does sit in between a virtual machine and a native SQL database. The way the managed instance is, it's kind of, think of a SQL instance lifted and shifted into the cloud with the benefit of platform as a service. But again, that's out of scope with this presentation. We'll be concentrating on that far right side there. Within Azure SQL databases, there are actually many types that you can build. At the top, I call normal mode. More specifically, this is the provisioned DTU or Vcore types that you can build. We'll be obviously covering that later on. We've got something called Azure SQL Database Serverless. The idea of that you can pause and resume the compute. And we've got Hyperscale. With this type, you can grow your database up to 100 terabytes. And we have Azure SQL Edge, more geared for IoT streaming architectures. And I'll go into, I've got a slide on each one later on. So Microsoft position Azure SQL Database is best for modern apps. You know, if you're building a solution from scratch, it's probably the place where you should go first in terms of the data tier. I'd say that, you know, over a virtual machine, if I'm being honest, because it kind of gets you away from doing all those administration tasks and lets you focus on the actual application itself, which is what we all want, really. So just going to the models, when you build a SQL database, you'll have this, I won't say it's a legacy, but it's one of the first ones that happened. It's something called the DTU model, a database transaction unit. And it's kind of like a blended measure of power assigned to your database in terms of CPU, memory, and read-write rates. And if you decide to go down this way, you have the option of selecting from basic, standard, or premium. And then within each one, you've got something called a compute size. So on this example here, you see I've got I've selected standard, and I can scale from an S10 and all the way up to an S12, which means I've got 3,000 DTUs assigned. If you look at the top portion of this screenshot. Now, from experience, I found that it's hard to try and translate what DTUs mean to the real world. People will often ask, oh, well, how many CPUs does it assign? What's the memory allocated to it? Well, I don't know. And it was kind of, I wouldn't say it was hard to understand. It was a term which many were kind of struggling to grasp with. And that's why we have this Vcore model now. And it's probably the way I would suggest building solutions to select the Vcore database. You can independently choose between compute and storage resources. It's based on Generation 5 hardware, and you've got different types of hardware that you can actually select in terms of whether you want to be more compute optimized or memory optimized. But again, this depends on the location you're building the solution. And the big thing is with the Vcore model, you can actually apply Azure Hybrid benefit if you're eligible to enable those cost savings. The other type which is worth mentioning is Hyperscale, which I've mentioned before. You can go up to 100 terabytes. If you look at this diagram, it has a completely different architecture to if you're building a DTU or a Vcore model. It totally separates the compute layer from the storage layer. You've got these other components called page servers and log services. The point here is it gives you that flexibility to go up to that 100 terabyte mark if you need to. I wouldn't say, you know, this isn't geared to be, it's not like a replacement for, say, Synapse Analytics or anything. I think this is more what Microsoft are calling HTAP, Hybrid Transactional Analytical Processing, where it's got a good measure, a good performance blend of both OOTP-based workloads and more complex select queries. And from experience, it's very good in terms of I/O. And another advantage of this technology is fast database backups and restores because it uses snapshot technology. Serverless is definitely worth mentioning here as well, because it was a lot of people have wanted this in the past. The idea of suspending and resuming your compute based on activity. So what's happening here is that if your database is not doing anything for X amount of time, it goes into an inactive state. And when that happens, you're saving money. Okay, and then when there's a process that kicks in, Azure Sql would then come back to alive and ramp up and start consuming compute again. And this is bound to something that you define in terms of min vcores and max vcores. You know, this example here shows it's floating between 1 and 4. And something to be aware of as well is the memory requirements when going down this option. Because at the moment when I wrote this presentation, there was a factor of 3 per core in terms of RAM. By that I mean, for every core assigned, you get 3 gig of RAM. So for this example, this database workload would have a maximum of 12 gig of RAM assigned to it. So it's something to worth mentioning as well, in case you know you've got memory requirements you need to think about, as I mentioned there. Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier on, the hardware types available. It does depend on the location of whether you can select a FS V2 or an M series. Again, I just wanted to highlight this for you because it's good options to have available. If you know that, say, your workloads are more CPU geared, then it might make sense to go for a more compute optimized hardware. Because we're moving into platform as a service, I get asked a lot of what DBAs can't do. Don't forget that we're not talking about VMs here or managed instances. This is the native, raw, the main platform as a service. So this is just a small list of the important things I think I get asked about what you can't do. And there's nothing here that shouldn't really surprise you. From stopping and starting services, you know, you won't be able to do low-level stuff like change log pages in memory settings, alter server configuration settings, and things of that nature. So when you are thinking about moving to Azure from an on-prem, my favorite technique is to use a PowerShell script that you find if you download the data migration system tool from Microsoft. And it's a two-step process. The first step is basically a PowerShell script which would run against an active workload, which will be on-prem. And you let that run for X amount of time, longer the better, really. That will generate some output. That output then becomes input into step 2, where then it will generate a SKU recommendation chart based on what was going on the on-premises SQL Server. It will tell you this database will be suited to this sort of compute level and so forth. And it's a really good starting point. I mean, it's kind of what I follow, and over time I probably had to tweak them due to just the nature of the workload, but it's a very good starting point and I thoroughly recommend it. So once you kind of know what SKU you want, I would say the first thing to do is to create an Azure Logical SQL Server first. Now, it's a logical SQL Server. You don't get billed for it. It's just, think of it as a home for your databases, and it's your entry point into getting connections into your databases. There are some limits to be aware about, as you can see in red there on the right side. You can only have up to 5,000 databases per server, and also there's an allocated amount of DTUs and Vcores per server as well. Some important features of Azure SQL Database. These are what I call, the real benefit of moving to this technology. Automated backups. There's no need to have in-depth DBA teams sitting there optimizing your full differential transactional backups. Microsoft do this for you. That also means that they give you the ability to do point-in-time restores from the portal as well. Active geo-replication is possible to globally distribute databases across data centers with a couple of clicks of a button, which is really powerful. And another benefit that I think is really important is advanced data security, which, if I remember correctly, Microsoft have badged this now as Azure Sql Defender. Important backup points, you'd probably be wondering. As soon as you create a database, Microsoft will issue a full backup under the covers. And then from there, the full backups are weekly. Your differentials are taken between every 12 and 24 hours. And your log backups between every 5 and 10 minutes. You do have the ability to configure long-term backup retention if you require to do so, but that is something that you will have to do yourself. Failover groups. So I mentioned earlier on that it's possible to build out active geo-replication. So just look at this as an abstraction layer above that, where you can group multiple databases together, place them into a group on a primary server, and you basically say, I want this collection of databases to be replicated as a group to a secondary location. What this means is in the past, what I've had to do with active geo-replication manually is I would have to change connection strings myself, because we would never have the ability to have a read-write listener endpoint. As you can see at the bottom here, that endpoint doesn't know whether I'm on the primary or secondary. So it's kind of like an on-prem DNS router. And also you've got access to a read-only listener point as well. So a couple of techniques to think about when moving to the cloud. My number one go-to, as I mentioned before, is the data migration assistant tool. So obviously you would get the PowerShell scripts with that as well, but you will definitely need access to this tool at a minimum to carry out an assessment. There is no point trying to move to the cloud if you've not done an assessment, because you'll probably get to the last stage try to move and it will fail due to compatibility issues. So this tool will definitely tell you what the issues are, and it will even tell you some of the steps you need to mitigate to or redesign the actual code base for you to move successfully. You don't have to use the tool to actually do the physical migration. That's up to you, but definitely it's a must to use it for an assessment perspective. If you don't want to use the tool, there are other ways. Once you are ready, you can actually have the option from Management Studio itself to deploy it automatically. If you don't want to do that, you want to be a bit more hands-on, you can manually create your own backpack from your on-prem database. You physically move that backpack to an Azure storage container, and then from the Azure portal, you can actually create the database from that backpack. Probably one of the more advanced solutions you can do is to set up transactional replication. You know, that classic publisher subscriber topology where the subscriber will be the Azure Sql database. And what will happen is once replication drains all the changes out and things are no longer changing, that is your window to flick the switch over to the cloud. So this is probably the only way you can do it in an online fashion. There is a lot to migration. Microsoft have done some fantastic documentation around this area, and I suggest you check that URL there, and it will tell you all the steps required to go from, say, SQL Server to Azure Sql Database, but there's other destinations and sources as well that might be of interest to you. Before we just get into security, I just want to quickly show you what the portal looks like. So I'm just going to quickly switch over to Azure the portal. I'm not going to go into an extensive demo because I'm just slightly constrained with time. I just want to show everybody what it looks like. So once you create the logical server here,
Arun,
yep.
We can only see your PowerPoint window at the moment.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure why. 1 second. How about now?
No, what I'm seeing is the PowerPoint window. There we are. Yeah, that's the portal now.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I just want to give everybody a quick overview of what the portal looks like. So as I said before, once you create that logical server, this is what it will look like, the main blade. 9 times out of 10, you'll be operating within the SQL database section. What I tend to personally do is, there are so many ways to create the database. You can do it from here, okay? You can actually go back to the main blade and create it from here and click add there. Or you can actually do it from Management Studio itself. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like and how easy it is to actually just navigate around the portal. I'll actually just go through the quick settings to show you what it looks like when you're configuring it as well. And these are where all the options are we've discussed. When you see the general purpose and business critical, this is the provision state where you can actually select your hardware configurations, Gen 5, the FSv2. I don't have access to the M series. The hyperscale we've discussed. The business critical again is the ability to where you can select the amount of vCores, or you can scale up and down the actual max data size as well. And when you're with the Vcore model, this is where you can activate the Azure hybrid benefit, which if you're in an enterprise company, you would definitely want to do. I'm just going to switch back to my PowerPoint. Can you see my PowerPoint slide, guys?
Not just yet.
No.
Aaron, whilst we wait for it to come through, we've had a question from Nige saying, can you migrate from existing DTU-based databases to newer Vcore models at all?
Yes, you can.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So it's literally a case of just going back into the configure section and just doing a scale request from your DTU version to the Vcore model.
Tremendous. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm just going to try. I'm having problems with the. Can you guys see the presentation there?
Yep, looks good.
Okay.
That's in app mode rather than presentation mode, if you follow me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Looks great.
Okay, cool. Security definitely needs its own sections. The first thing you probably need to be aware of is this concept of firewall rules and IP addresses. You have the ability to create two types, database level and server level. I tend to not to use either, but if you're going to use one, you're probably best using the database level because they are scoped to the database. And if you are using that concept of failover groups I've mentioned earlier before, and a failover happens, what happens is all these IP addresses get taken with them as part of the replication process. If you didn't have that, you would just have to manually reconfigure it at the server level. And I say, well, I don't tend to use this anymore because I tend to go down at a minimum this virtual network route where ultimately isolates connectivity to your logical server, that SQL server, to from a given subnet. Okay, it's probably the best way to do things from a security perspective, and it's something that I always do until recently, that is, because I now tend to build on private endpoints. What I will say about both private endpoints and VNet service endpoints is both techniques actually isolate the network traffic over the Azure backbone, which is great. But the key difference here is with that VNet service endpoint we discussed in the last slide, we're still having a reliance on a public endpoint. With this private link, we remove the need for that public endpoint, and effectively we're bringing our own private IP address in. So it is the ultimate way in terms of security, and it's probably now one of the first things that I do when I'm building out solutions at the back end. And it's not just available just for SQL Database. I know this talk is about SQL Database, but you can do it with many other services in Azure too. There's no excuses for not setting this up anymore. It's, again, another really important one on my list that I do, enabling Azure AD authentication. It will need your AD administrators to help set this up, but once it's ready and set up, it is the way to do things. Same advantages you expect with the on-prem AD. You can bring in these groups from a management point of view. You can do security controls around these groups instead of individual SQL logins. And the great thing is you can wrap it in with multi-factor authentication as well. So it's ticking a lot of my boxes there. As I mentioned before, this ADS, also known as Azure Sql Defender, this should also be something you enable. This is something that you have to enable, and it gives the ability to have further features enabled from data discovery classification, vulnerability assessments, and advanced threat detection. The data discovery and classification, it's probably, you know about that already. You can discover, label and classify your data within your tables. The vulnerability assessment is really handy. This is where you can schedule scans, and what will happen based on some inbuilt knowledge base from Microsoft, it will look out for some vulnerabilities that it feels you have. And it's good to schedule that because something might have changed without you knowing. At least it's been proactive, and that scan is emailing you some of the information that it's seen. You can pass it as a baseline if you're happy with it. If you're not happy with it, then there's your point to go and fix it. Advanced threat detection deserves its own page. Enabling it via the Azure Sql Defender is brilliant because you can't build this sort of solution yourself. It's proactive. It's there to protect you from all sorts of potential issues, from SQL injection pattern attacks. It will track access from unusual logins, unfamiliar principals, and it can even detect so-called brute force login attempts. So it's worth it just for this feature in itself, and expect to get some real-time emails as well. Performance tuning. This is a hot topic in the cloud because what I call the ultimate bad combo here is not only if you size your database wrong, but if you've got suboptimal code running, you're just going to get severe performance issues, and it's more noticeable in the cloud. I've read reports that it can get to a point where your incoming request will start getting rejected if you start flatlining for this example, your DTUs, but all your core allocation as well. So it's really important to keep on top of performance tuning. And there's a few ways you can do this. You still can leverage DMVs, these dynamic management views, which you probably know and love well. On the left side, these are just a couple of examples I've got from Microsoft, which I tend to use a lot of. And these won't particularly fix anything, but what will happen, it will paint a picture of what is going on. On the right side there, it's what we love and know, database weight statistics. These are weight statistics scoped to the database, not the server level. Again, won't fix anything, but it paints a picture in my mind of what is happening within this specific environment. The Azure portal is probably where you're going to spend most of your time. The main page will show you very basic information. This is probably the right time as well to start configuring, getting a bit more information in terms of these metrics that actually interest you, because you have to map them in yourself. They won't just be there. So find the ones that are relevant to you for you to analyze. You will probably spend most of your time in something called the Query Performance Insight tool. Now, this is where you have the ability to actually drill down and find the actual T-SQL that is causing the issues, which is very handy. The only thing I will say about this is that you cannot see the execution plan. You have to go and find that yourself manually through Management Studio. You have the option of enabling something called automatic tuning. Now, this is a proactive service that is running in the background, uses all sorts of advanced techniques, machine learning, and what happens is that it gives you the ability for the tool to actually create indexes, drop indexes, and do plan regression corrections. What I will say about this, you don't have to turn this on, but you do have the ability to turn this on. This is pretty much down to you and your environment and whether you're comfortable with the tool doing these sorts of things. I mean, for example, if you're looking after something that's not your IP and you're getting this feature to create indexes, it's probably not the best way of doing things. But if this is your solution and you've got hundreds or thousands of databases, then maybe you want to leverage this this capability. There is no right or wrong answer, but it's there for you if you desire. I say I tend not to, because I'm quite manual. I like to use things like the query store. The query store is still available within Azure Sql Database. It's pretty similar, very, very similar, 99% similar to the on-prem query store, by a couple of settings. And if you've used it on-prem, it's no different in the cloud. It's there for you to check, to see if you've got plan instability issues. It's great. Another thing that I personally like to do is extended events as well. Extended events in Azure, naturally, you're going to have less actions and events than on-prem, but there's still plenty there for you. As you can see on this screen here at the bottom, I created some code there against the ring buffer just to track some XML deadlocks that I was getting. What I will say is you probably don't want to write it out to the ring buffer, and you want to bind this out to storage. And the way to do that is to write write it out to Azure Storage Container, which, I'll be honest, it's not straightforward, but once you've done it, it's fine, and it's sitting there and it's queryable in the long term. There are multiple components to it. You have to create SAS tokens, database credentials, and secrets. To be fair, Microsoft have done an updated version of the URL that I've got there, and it's very thorough and in-depth, and it covers pretty much everything you need to do to get up and running with extended events in Azure. And I just want to make that clear, because it's another important tool to have in your performance tuning armory. CheckDB. So if you know about SQL Server, you'll know about CheckDB, checking logical physical integrity of your database. Now, this is a great debate within the technical community. You can see on that left side on that DTU chart there, I flatlined the DTUs because guess what? You do have the ability to run CheckDB. But the question is, should you? Technically speaking, this is Microsoft's responsibility, and they actually say, it is their responsibility. They have many techniques that they use to make sure that there is no corruption, as I've stated here on this screen. But it doesn't stop you from running it. I personally don't, because it's a database as a service, and I'd rather concentrate elsewhere. But I know many people run mission critical systems on Azure SQL databases that run it. There is no right or wrong, but Microsoft's stance is that they will actually, corruption is their responsibility. And if there is corruption, what happens? Well, what happens is that if they can fix it without any downtime, any data loss, without any issue, they'll just do it. If it's catastrophic, I believe that they will get in touch with you and work with you to and find out a mitigation path. I've been using this product for 6 years and I've never had that, touch wood. So working with Azure SQL Database, hopefully you've got a whirlwind tour there of what people expect from you. I kind of break it down into these areas, and if you can get comfortable with understanding the different tiers of compute sizes, the design and how you would go about migrating, and once you're there, making sure it's secure and always keeping it performant, I think it will give you a really solid foundation to build successful solutions against Azure SQL Database. And I think I've left a couple of minutes spare for any questions I have.
Thanks, Soreen. That was really, really interesting. We did have a couple of follow-ups actually to that question earlier, which I think you could probably helpfully answer for us.
Sure.
In fact, the question is withdrawn them, but said that they'll contact you directly. So
Okay.
don't worry about that. I've got a couple of questions, if I
Sure.
may.
Yeah.
You talked about HTAP processing sort of models in Hyperscale, and I know this presentation wasn't about Hyperscale.
Yeah.
But I wondered about the applicability of Azure SQL Database to analytic workloads, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I said that, it was more the case. It's quite rare, in my experience, to have a purely fast-based OLTP system that's, say, I don't know, 20 terabytes.
Mm-hmm.
What I think Microsoft have done there, I think they've done really well. They've kind of got a sweet spot between, say, a full-on OLTP database and a MPP-based architecture like Synapse.
Mm-hmm.
So I found it gave me best of both worlds.
Right.
Where I needed the balance of both, really.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. You also mentioned that you showed us the query. I forget what it was called. Query Insight tool, something like that.
Query Performance Insight. Yeah.
Query Performance Insight. Thank you. And you said that execution plans aren't available there. Do you know if that's something that's on Microsoft's roadmap? Because I'm sure that you know, as you say, you know, there'll be a lot of people who are interested in finding those there rather than having to hunt around for them.
I'll be honest. I think I asked about 2 years ago, and
still no.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
It's a good question. It's probably something I'm going to personally find out as well.
I can't believe there isn't a question on a feedback forum somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
I think there is. I think that's what probably probed me 2 years ago to ask as well. It just, I'm not sure, you know, if it's on their backlog in terms of, you know, if it's up there in terms of priority.
Okay. For anyone who's listening who isn't aware, actually, there is the possibility, as we've just been alluding to raise issues like this if you want improvements made to products. So if you can find an issue like, for example, this one where you want execution plans added, then find it and upvote it, because that's the way to get stuff added. Would you agree, Aaron?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're very open to suggestions, if I'm honest.
Great stuff. We've had a question pop up in the chat here. Which was recommended. First of all, the question is, the way the question's worded is Azure Data Migration Service or DACPAC/blob server storage. I guess that's a question about the recommendation between the two approaches that you described there for migration.
Yes, sorry, what was the question?
So whether it would be better to use the Azure Data Migration Service or to use the DACPAC/blob storage approach. Is there a recommendation one over the other, and if so, perhaps why?
For the actual migration?
It's not clear from the question, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so I think it probably does mean it, because I did say you can actually migrate from within the tool. To be honest, if you are using the tool to do the assessment, it probably makes sense to initiate the migration from there. I was just merely giving other options available.
Yeah, makes sense. And another question to follow up to that one was, so I've got here, is DACPAC faster than DMA? Does that make sense to you? Again, I'm just reading the question out of the chat.
Technically, I think they're doing the same thing underneath. Okay. I'm not sure. I don't really have any specific timings, if I'm honest.
Another question that's just come in. I think I know the answer to this one actually, but I'll leave it for you, of course. Which is, can you write T-SQL code within an Azure Db to refer to objects in another Azure SQL Db?
Cross-database queries.
Cross-database queries.
That is not supported.
Okay. Just out of interest, do you know if that's something that's on the radar?
No, I don't think so. If you want to do that, you have to go down, or definitely a virtual machine, and I'm semi-confident you can do that in managed instance.
Right. Yeah, I think for people who are used to on-prem instances, and I can say this from my own personal experience as well, that's one of the sort of initial surprises, I think, is discovering that you can't do that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those reasons why I think a lot of people tend to move, if they have that requirement, that is, and they can't refactor, managed instance could work there.
Great stuff. Great. Okay, and then finally, someone's asked if the slides for this can be made available. Do you have a website where you host these?
Yes, I
trainings
do.
people want
I will update. I think I have an old one on my website at the moment under my presentations tab. I will get that updated.
Okay, great stuff. And is your website address easy for us to remember, or can we tweet it out for you?
It's www.blobeater.blog.
Okay. Well, we'll get that tweeted out actually.
Great.
So that
that'd be nice.
So that anyone looking for the slides can find them. Great stuff. So some nice comments coming in the chat to say thanks very much for giving us that really interesting, really informative presentation. Thanks very much indeed.
That's great. Would you like me to stop sharing?
Perhaps, yeah, go ahead, do that.
Okay.
For everyone else, we've got 10 minutes now to take a comfort break, get a cup of coffee, whatever you want to do before Laura is going to be kicking off at 8 o'clock to talk about paginated reports in Power BI.
Just double checking, Laura. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I'm still here. It's all right.
Excellent. I think I panicked when I realized we'd need to make you a co-host again. I was like, oh no, God, I've got to keep an eye on the attendees list.
But that's all done now. You have all of the access you need, Laura, I think.
I can't turn on video, but I'm just checking I can. And I.
Let me just.
No, I'll let you. It's all right. It's all right. Start screen share. I can screen share. That's fine. I can stay. I'm perfectly happy to stay with the camera off.
So I've made you a co-host. I don't know if that should give you the ability to open your video if you wish to do so.
I could be sociable. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Another fan. I've got to say, your image of Warwick Castle is a great deal. Allegedly, we're looking at the same castle here. You've chosen a much more richer camera angle, shall we say?
I'm getting really good at finding backgrounds because behind me is an absolute mess. So it's my thing of lockdown. Is I keep looking at my study going, I really should tidy it up so that, and I see all these people who have beautiful tidy rooms behind them. And I'm thinking, that didn't happen.
That's why I'm up against a wall.
Yeah,
it's much easier.
My background is curated like my social media feed. What you see is what I want you to see.
Yeah.
If I turn the camera around, absolutely, it's horrendous.
Yeah, no. I moved my room around when I started working at home, but I didn't quite get to the point of tidying up behind me.
Yeah, one of the things about lockdown is these insights you get into other people's houses.
Yeah.
And the golden rule, if a cat or a dog appears, they are to stay and become the center of attention, and everyone must stop talking about anything. It's like, hey, who forgot who set this database to full recovery model and forgot to configure any additional backups, and then a cat strolls out and you go, oh, never mind, we'll fix it later. Cat.
Yeah, what you need is a button to press that summons the cat or the dog.
I'm sure there's a joke.
Meetings.
There's a joke somewhere in here about pausing your serverless SQL DB, right?
Hey.
Very good.
There was something I remember seeing on Twitter quite early on in lockdown as well from someone who works at NASA about a conversation she genuinely had with colleagues about what they needed to do to stop domestic animals taking control of spacecraft.
Wow.
Somehow full recovery database models don't seem quite so mission critical.
That's fair. My brain was frantically whirring away to see if I could come up with a good like no lock joke, but unfortunately I just had to wait for that delay. Ooh.
Well, maybe there's a meeting where you have to remember to lock your screen. So if you go for no lock with your screen, you will get no lock with your queries, maybe. If anyone's just joining, by the way, this is an attempt to force an elaborate pun out of something to do with domestic animals. This is not, I repeat, not database advice.
This is why I've never been a DBA.
Oh, I'm certainly not claiming ever to have been one.
Nor I. I was left in charge of a database for a day by the DBA that decided to take the day off. And he said,
God.
Chris, normally I would hand over DBA responsibilities to our other office, but given I'm only out Friday, do you think you can handle it? It was offline by 11 a.m.
Yes.
I do miss it. I did it for 12
Yeah.
years.
No,
Yeah.
I always give the advice to people though. Find out what your DBA, what their favourite biscuits are of your DBA. You can always
Fruit for me.
bribe. You can always bribe. Okay, for favourite food, you can always bribe them with food.
That's good advice. Good advice. Someone in the chat has commented that that the castle behind me makes me look like I've got a crown on.
Oh.
If it looks a bit jaunty if I do that, maybe. I did have a crown on, but unfortunately it's so shiny that the Zoom blocks it out completely if I've got a background up. So I might reserve that one for an appearance later in the week. So do come back for the talks and for the crowns.
I don't know quite how jaunty I can get my crown before it falls off.
My crown is completely homemade as well, so I'll be tweeting instructions about how to make your own crown. Data relay # make your own crown.
And my daughter every year used to get cross with the paper crowns in crackers. And so one year she madly made a whole load of fabric Christmas crowns, which we've now have worn every year.
Lovely.
That's
Did
fantastic.
I see that Jessie had a now actually I'm gonna, if I'm wrong here, this is gonna be terrible, but did I see that Jessie had a Christmas crown on yesterday?
Oh, that would be very Jessie.
Yeah, Jessie had a Christmas crown on yesterday.
It's a great relief, because I realised once I'd said that, if it turned out to be some family heirloom,
You'd then be in trouble.
I'd be in a great deal of trouble. But I think we're good.
My head has always been too big for Christmas cracker crowns.
I have that problem.
I'd go to put it on and it rips straight down one side, and I discard it to the floor after about 2 minutes.
Yep.
Yep.
But I'm going to stick with this one now. I'm going to wear this one to Christmas dinner this year, I think. Get as many uses out of it.
Showboating.
Everyone pops their cracker and goes, hey, oh, this is so much better than last Christmas. Oh, you know, we're loving it. And then just at the top of the table, subtly, just place it on my head as if nothing weird is happening.
A respectful silence falls around the table.
Exactly.
If you have siblings and your siblings are anything like mine, then also the tearing paper crown will lead to the usual annual series of jokes about your massive head.
I mean, yes, that's entirely fair.
Sorry, I'm not saying that you have a massive head, Chris. I mean, this is what I get from my massive head.
I think it's a sibling's prerogative to do that kind of teasing, though.
It's what siblings are for.
That's what mine would argue, certainly.
It's quite hard to tease my siblings, though, because one of them's like one of them has a master's degree in acting and actor training and has done her own TEDx talk and is like a trailblazer in video game direction, and the other one is a professional bass player who's played with like some of the great musicians around the UK, and it's like, darn it, I get to talk about database DevOps. Grr.
We all know who's the coolest, Chris. You're amongst friends here.
I mean,
there's no one in the audience who would disagree that makes you the coolest.
Well, I mean, everyone here is here to see obviously everything we've got, everything Laura and Aaron have to present. Actually, having said that, there is a Aaron, there's been another question coming quickly just before we transition over to Laura. I don't know if you want to jump in on this one, but questions come in. How do you decide the number of DTUs required during the migration from on-premises? So a kind of benchmarking. So that was the Microsoft tool that you talked about, wasn't it?
I'm not sure if Aaron's still here. If you can hear us, Aaron, you're muted. That could be that classic lockdown problem there. Or he could be making himself a nice cup of coffee.
Absolutely. That might have to be one for later.
Might have to be, yes, indeed.
Hopefully when Aaron's here, because do you know what, I'm not answering that question. Or where's that D20 dice?
If you want to get in touch with, if we're not able to get an answer for the questioner for that, then we will tweet out the location of Aaron's website and his Twitter handle, so you can tweet out to him yourself if you want to ask a question after the sessions are all done.
I think the next comment has summed it up, which is the database migration assistant, the DMA. I think I'm pretty sure Aaron was saying how it helps with the benchmarking. You leave it running and it identifies or makes recommendations about what kind of tiering you're going to need. So the good thing is, so to the asker of the question about benchmarking, if you go back, obviously we'll be making, this will be available on YouTube, so you could just zip back to the point in time where Aaron was talking about the database migration assistant, and you'll be able to watch that again.
Great stuff. Well, Chris, if you'd made that question 10 seconds longer, that would have been a seamless segue, because it's now 8 o'clock, and I think we ought to turn the floor over to Laura. Laura Graham-Brown, who'll be talking to us this evening about paginated reports in Power BI. Laura, I'm going to stop sharing and over to you, if that's all right.
Yep, that's fine.
Do you want us to ask questions as they come up, or just hold them for the end? We can do either.
Let's go. Let's have questions as we go.
Okay, great stuff.
That's not a problem. And if they need to be delayed a bit, because they'll get answered later in the demo, I will say so. I'm quite happy to do that.
Okay, great stuff. All right. Well, over to you.
Okay. Can I just confirm that you can see my screen?
We absolutely can.
Cool. Okay. So welcome to my session on a brilliant report. Can I print it? Okay. So let's firstly get PowerPoint to behave, and a bit about me. I'm known as my full name's Laura Graham-Brown, but that's way too long, so it's Laura GB. For 20 years, I've been making data behave, but I'm very much at the user end, the self-service BI, rather than the back end of looking after databases. I'm active on Twitter. I'm Laura_GB. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, but not for data, for business apps instead. Because hey, Power BI kind of bridges that gap. So today's session, this comes from building lots and lots of Power BI reports. So you go and spend those hours and hours. No, this isn't one of my really complicated reports. This is a nice, simple one. But you spend hours and hours building a report, getting it right. You've put all the lovely things in it. You've done all the nice things, and everybody likes it. They're all impressed, etc., etc., etc. And then some delightful person asks the question, "Can I print it?" Or can we send out the PowerPoint pack that we normally send out before the meetings, or some other version of that? And they kind of, my gut reaction is no. Sorry, the answer is no. You can't have that. Go away. Look, here's Power BI. This is how we're doing it now. But that doesn't quite work, and people get upset with that answer. So I had to come up with some other answers, and Microsoft have provided a number of ways to do it. Okay, So we're going to have a look at the ways to say yes. The first 3 are really short little demos. The first 2 are very short demos, the an export and the subscribe and the limitations about what's happening there. Okay. And then we're going to have a quick look at Power Automate. You might want to know it as Microsoft Flow and how that works and how that helps. And then we're going to get into the meat of the session, which is the paginated report and how that works. But please be aware of the paginated report. I'm very much aiming at somebody's built a Power BI report and they want a printable version. Okay. So I'm hoping next slide says demo. No, it doesn't. I've lost my demo slide. All this slide will come back up later, but I also will make sure this slide deck is available as well, to all the links that are available for paginated reports. So let me switch over to my other to demo mode. So that's not going to get me in demo mode. Right, my apologies, wrong screen came up. Let's have that window. It of course opens on the wrong screen. There we go. So here we are in Power BI Service. Everything I'm showing today is being done at the moment in a premium workspace. I will point out the bits that can be done in the differences this makes. Okay, so and the bits that you can do in premium, in a non-premium space, and the ones that will work in premium per user. Okay. So here's my Power BI report. Let me go and click on it. It's some fake data. And by the way, if you've ever had to make up fake data and you've not come across Mockaroo, you're missing out on something, because Mockaroo will give you some data which you get to control the randomness of it, etc., etc., etc. So here we are in a pretty simple Power BI report. It's got some measures. It's quite a simple little report. On my next page, I've got some more visuals showing you some numbers, etc. And in some text. And in the bottom left hand corner, I've got a little bit of SVG showing you the percentage of something being filled up. Okay. And then I've got in my details, I've got a table that's got a list of all the issues with wonderful text, random made text, but here's all the issues. Okay. And that's a typical Power BI report, a pretty simple one, but a nice straightforward. So what options have we got? The first demo that I said we were going to do was an export, and that's quite straightforward. If I go and do an export, I've got a number of options here. So I can go to PowerPoint or a PDF, but let me go to PowerPoint just so I can illustrate what happens. And it shares what you want. So current values means it's got the current filters. You could just go for the current page, or you could go for the whole report, and you can include hidden ones if you've got any hidden tabs, but I haven't in this report. So we can export that out. And it takes a little while. Okay. And so while that's going, let me explain some of the issues about this report. So one of the issues is on this page here, we've got 747 rows of data. Okay, so printing this is going to have some issues, as you can probably imagine. You're going to get a beautiful picture of a scroll bar, which is no use to man the beast. The other issue which we're going to have, okay, is on the issues per week. I have made use of, you're going to switch across to that page. I have made, to do the closed on time, I've done so a little drawing in SVG to do that. So therefore I've used the HTML content custom visual, which I imported, but it's not a Microsoft certified visual. It is an uncertified visual. So therefore it's going to take, so there we are. There's my report. It claims it's ready. Oh, there it is. It's, oh, McAfee, go away. Let's open that file. My edge is updated. I'm sure it used to appear in the bottom left-hand corner. Are we going to open or not? Yep, it's working on opening. There we go. See, PowerPoint is getting there. And of course, it opens in the wrong window. 2 screens is lovely, but it has its issues. So here we are. Here is our report. It puts a front slide on there. It tells you about when your data was last refreshed, which is quite useful in UTC. And there we are. There's our page. See, that page worked fine. Then we get to this page, our custom visual. It doesn't come through. Okay, so if people are going to be exporting your report, you do need to work out which bits will work and which bits won't work. A slicer is no use to man a beast. And a item that's going to have to scroll is also no use. Okay, so that's our export done. The other option that we've got, okay, how do you get rid of that? Let's hope that goes away. There we go. Subscribe. Okay, so subscribe. If you've used Power BI, you possibly have come across. Subscribe allows you to do a number of things. So I can add a new subscription. We can put in a number of items into here. I'm just going to take myself out because that email address doesn't actually exist. And I'm going to go for lauragbdemo@outlook.com. It's an email box that really doesn't get looked at apart from in demos. And it's a premium workspace, so I can send it outside the tenancy, assuming my admin allows me to. And I can go into here and put in a title for the subject. Now, and you can pick how often it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, etc., etc. The full report attachment is only available in premium and premium per user workspaces. And you can choose what format it's going to come out in. So you've got PDF or PowerPoint. And I can do save and close. And we can, let me just make sure that it's actually going to run. It takes a couple of minutes. But as you can see, you can set up. And what you can do is you can filter things to be a particular filter and set up a subscription at that point. So therefore you can subscribe with different filters applied. But I strongly recommend, if you are doing lots of different filters applied, name all of your subscriptions. Otherwise, you can end up with like 20 subscriptions and you can't remember which one's which. So let's see if the demo gods are on my side. So because I included a link to that report, what you end up doing is you end up sharing that link. So I could have unticked it so they didn't get a link to that. But if I click onto that email, it says I've shared that link with them. Okay, which gives them an open report. And they should come through an email shortly that gives me a copy of that report, an exported version. Okay, so we will hopefully see if that one comes through. But because I want to do a bit more demos, we're going to come back to that one and see what that one looks like when it's come through, because we're going to send another email to this box as well. So what will happen is an email will come through with an attachment. But what I want to do is I want to move. There we go. See, as I threaten to move away, it arrives. And there we go. We've got our reports arrived. It's got a link to it. It should include a picture as well. And it also includes a PDF file, which will show you the report. Now, in that PDF file, if we open that up for a second, you can see we have exactly the same issues as we had in the PowerPoint. We've got slightly more of an issue in the fact that it's not loading, but hopefully am I going to load? If it's not going to load, you're going to have to trust me that it has exactly the same issues. The custom visual doesn't come through, and obviously also the list of things also is just a scroll bar. Okay, I'm going to close that, and we'll come back. We will come back. So let's go back into our other window, and the other possibility we've got is a new feature, is a reasonably new thing in Power Automate. And so we're going to write a flow that does that subscription. Okay, so if I come into here, I'm going to go, so I could do a scheduled one. So a scheduled flow. Send issues. We can say when it starts. You can repeat. Please don't leave it on 1 minute because you will run out of flows that you're allowed to run. So if I go to the week, I can choose which days of the week it happens on. So there we are. We can have it on every day of the working week, and I can click start. So on this one, the disadvantage of a subscribe is it ends up in your inbox. Now, my IT career started a long time ago. One of my jobs was I was an email administrator. So, and in those days, we used to run out of space. So people sending files, I really have a thing against. So this flow, we're going to have it that it's going to save it to Teams. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for our Power BI parts. So in Power Automate, for Power BI, you don't have a huge number of things we can do. There's basically these 4 things. And here's our export to file for Power BI reports. Currently, this is only available in premium workspaces, but doesn't require premium Power Automate. Licensing, Microsoft, don't we love it? But in the documentation, premium per user, I think we'll get it eventually. It just hasn't yet. So we're going to go for LoRaDB demo. That's my workspace. Let's pick my report. There we are, issues. And on the export format, I've also got a picture. So that one I could also pull out as well. So if we stick to PDF for a second, we can then come down all the way through these. There are various things that you can fill in with regards to what pages you want and what bookmarks you want and what state you want them to be in. We are going to keep it really simple, and we're just going to go with that. Okay. Please be aware this is a preview feature. So therefore it has the delights of not always being 100%. Although I've used it quite a lot and I've not had issues. So the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to make up a file name, because if we're going to do this daily, we can't always call it the same thing, okay? Because you're not giving yourself the snapshot possibilities there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a compose step. And into here, I'm hoping I'm going to get this right. No, you can't do it like that, Laura. You press the FX button. And this allows you to write an expression. So I'm going to go for format date time. And into here, I can put in UTC now, which is today. And then I can put in a format which is going to be not double quotes, single quotes. I wish languages could kind of make up their minds on this one. So I'm going to go with the year hyphen the month, if I remember rightly, has to be in capitals, hyphen 2 Ds. And then we're going to put all of that in a concat. Power Automate is painful. If anybody thinks M is painful, believe me, Power Automate is worse. And I spend a lot of time in both places. Issues. Now, the one thing you have to remember in here is we've put it out as a PDF, so please do put it on an extension onto the file name. So that will give me that, and let's hope we've got that right. Yep, we have, because it came up blue, didn't come up red. And then we're going to add a new step. And into here, we're going to put in a create a file. That's not how you spell create, though. And we're going to go to SharePoint create file. And I'm just going to cheat slightly and switch over to my other connection. So it goes onto my tenants. Yeah, I'm swapping tenancies around in circles. And so then we're going to go for data demo. Folder path. And let's walk through the SharePoint site, because that's what's sitting behind your teams. And we're going to put it into data relay folder. Okay. So the name of the file, it can come from the compose action. And the file content comes from the export to file. Okay, we click save. And there we are. And it recommends we test it. So let's test it. Now, this trick can also be done with paginated reports as well. Allows you to give, instead of having to create subscriptions for everything. There we go. And what it's going to take a little bit of time to actually run that flow, because just in the same way is it's got to do the export. So just so the export to file up here takes about a minute normally. So I'm just going to prove to you that in Teams, here we go. I've got my data relay and in files here. I shouldn't have any. If Teams would play ball, it would be nice.
When does Teams ever play ball, Laura?
Rarely when I'm in it. Rarely when I'm in it.
Rarely when many of us are in it, by the sounds of it. I'm not sure.
My flow's working though. That's always a nice sign. Yeah. I madly joined the Teams preview, which was a bad idea. A little IT at the top there means I'm in preview. It's not going to show it to me. Come on. It just knows as soon as I can see there's a file there and I can show it opens, I'm going to close it. See, it knows. There we are. See, there's my file. It was created a minute ago. And if we click on it, we can start a conversation about it. It's loading it up there. So there's the first page. And what it does is it creates images for these. By the way, on the PowerPoint, it was how it does it is it just puts an image on everything, which is a screenshot. So there we are. There's our issue summary. And you can see we've still got the issue about the non-certified. But if you design your report knowing that it's going to be exported like this, I've actually got quite a lot of reports at client sites which are being exported exactly this way, and they work because they want their PowerPoint pack or they want their snapshot, and they need them to work. So if your report is designed correctly, if I only had those front 2 pages and I didn't have this HTML thing, it would work fine, no problem. So let's close down that. So this is obviously one way of doing it, and I could have had this a lot more complicated in doing all sorts of lovely things about files, etc., etc. But that doesn't actually solve the problem in my report of page 3 of my report, which is the details and the long list and how that's going to work. And with premium per user, and if you haven't heard the announcements of premium per user, if you haven't heard Chris Finnan shouting very loudly, he got very excited about it. That premium per user is $20 a month or $10 a month if you've already got Pro. So let's move across to our paginated reports. And for paginated reports, you need to have a download report builder. Okay, and report builder is a completely different environment compared to Power BI. But if you've done your work in Power BI, you can connect to a Power BI dataset, and that's what I'm going to demo. For those people who've got data in databases, please don't go via Power BI. Please connect straight to the database. It's a lot easier. Okay, but as this session said, a Power BI report cannot print it. So the first thing you have to sort out is a data source. So I go into there and I'm going to add a Power BI dataset connection. I should have asked if there's any questions. I was hoping if there are, please interrupt.
Will do, Laura. At the moment, I think you're all good. Okay.
And so there we are. It's connected up already to the right to be logged in, and you can see there's my workspace, there's my report, and then I can click select. And so that's done my data source. Now we need to do a data set. So I'm going to click add data set. And I'm going to name it. Can't put any spaces in the name. It asks which data source you want to come from. So there we are. We can put that one in. So one report can have multiple data sources. Okay. Now into your query type here, it allows you to put in a query designer. And what the query designer is it goes off the data set and finds all the tables and the columns that are there. Okay. Now, one of the things to understand is, although it respects calculations, etc., it does not have the relationships coming through. Okay, so you can't pull fields from different tables and expect them to work in relationships unless you're going to write the DAX. Okay, and there's ways to do it, and I'll point you in the right directions. But for the time being, we're just going to go with a really simple report here. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging in each field. And I've not found a way to not have to drag in each field, which is slightly annoying to say the least. Apart from that, there are other ways of doing this, but if you're doing it purely from this and you're not doing it from the original report, that will, let's put in a, and you also it's a little bit difficult to put things in the middle. Can I put that one into there? Okay, right. You can then click to execute the query. And what that'll do is it will go and run it, and it'll pull you back the data. Okay. And I can then click OK.
In the meantime, we've had a quick question come through.
Yep.
So the question is, in premium per user, would the author or the viewer or both need the premium license to use paginated reports?
So if they want to be able to run the paginated report, they all need premium per user. But if what they're doing is doing an export of the premium, if you're going to use something like Power Automate to go and fetch the export into a PDF and send it, then just the ID that's being used inside Power Automate would use it. And I've used that a lot in clients. So that we've gone in and we've put in a premium per user license for the designer and for the, and we've used their account in Power Automate, and they're the only person that's got the account. So if they're going to go and run the report, everybody has to have premium per user. But there's nothing in there that says you can't subscribe somebody who hasn't got a premium per user license to that report as well, using Power Automate or using subscriptions.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
So when it comes to things like fields, if you want to rename a field, so I want that issue details. I don't think I can put a space in, so I'm just going to get rid of that underscore because I don't like it. But you can rename your fields in here. And then I'm going to click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really simple table. I'm just going to go for a table, and there's a table wizard. So I can pick my data set. Now I'm just going to do a really simple version of grabbing all of those and putting them in values and not worrying about column groups or anything like that. And we're not doing groups or grand totals because we're not totaling anything. And then I'm going to click next. That can I move that field? Can it let me move that field? I can almost guarantee it's not going to let me, is it? No, it's not. We'll cope with the reported being on the end. And then I'm going to click finish. I could have gone in there, by the way, and resorted them. Now, paginated reports, one of the other names they get given is pixel perfect. So you are designing this page up. So what I did was I started with a template. Sorry, I didn't mention that at the beginning. I started with a template, which I designed up. And for speed, I haven't done that in today's session. But in my 12 days of paginated reports, which I madly did over Christmas, by the way, I don't recommend it. It doesn't get you friends with family at all. There is my first video. So the one that came out on Christmas Day is creating a template. Okay, so that's where I got all this from, and this is exactly that one. I think it's about a 10-minute video. So I've got a table there. It's selected. What I want to do is I want to move it to be in the right location. And there isn't a selection pane in here to be able to select the things you want to be able to select. So while I've got it selected, I'm just going to, in the bottom right-hand corner here, I've got position and it says location, and it's at an inch. Okay. No, it's not on it. It's 1/10 of an inch. That's weird, isn't it? So on the left, we're going to put it at 0 so that it's against the edge of the report, because I put page margins in. Okay. The top, I happened to know my top banner of from my report is 1.5 centimeters tall. So if I do that, that's going to sit exactly just below it. Okay. So you need to work out the measurements of everything. Now, so let's have a quick look at this report. So we can do a run. And there's one version of it. There's also a print layout, which we'll just step into. And we'll just have a quick look at the things we're going to change. Okay. So in my print layout here, one, I've got all my closed calls. I want to get rid of those. All of my headings are right aligned because, hey, that's the way it works. My issue details is a bit too squashed. I could have that bigger. And my reported, I just want to change that date. And the priority column is probably too wide. So I can make a couple of columns narrower, and I'm going to make this column wider. Okay, so let's do some of those changes. But let's start with filtering it so that we aren't doing 183 pages. So back into design. Now, this filter I could do in a number of places. I could do it here in the table, or I could do it at the data set level. And there's multiple ways to do it in here as well. So I'm going to go to the data set properties. Okay, and so there's a number of places you can do it in here. If you do it in the query designer, it will change the code that's written in here. And for those of you that recognize this kind of code, it's the kind of thing you see if you use Dux Studio and putting code into there. So anything you've seen in Dux Studio, you can put into here. Okay. But another place you can put a filter is into here. And we can click add filters. And this is the easiest way to do it. It's probably not the best data handling way. So if it's a large set of data, I would probably put it back into the query. And so I'm going to go for status does not equal closed. And click OK. And click OK. Right. And so trust me, that one works. We'll go and have a look at it in a second. What I'm just going to do is I'm just going to do a couple of changes of column widths. Now you could go through all these columns and change them using widths, etc., etc. Fitting in with the pixel perfect idea. Now the important thing is to not make this wider than I've got it set to. So this is set so that you don't end up with a blank page. Okay. For anybody that remembers, if you've ever had the delights of Microsoft Access reports and those blank pages because you made something a little bit too wide, it's back there again. And for anybody else that has to go at Paginated Reports and feels like they're back in the 90s, so do I. So put that on the left. So that deals with a couple of widths. We were going to do the reported date as well. So I clicked on there to get the dark blue highlight, okay, and then a right click and placeholder properties. So placeholder properties, I can put in a number and I can choose how I want that formatted. So I'm going to go for date. And I'm going to go for a nice short date version there. And then let's click OK. And let's try running it. And there we are. We haven't got any closed ones anymore. The columns are a little bit narrower. And I've got my issues columns a bit wider, and there we are. Reported is just a date. Okay, so obviously you could spend some time in here. Now, one of the issues is that title hasn't appeared. Okay, but when I publish it, weirdly, the title then does appear. So one of the things I am going to remember to do, given what I was talking about earlier about things failing, let's do a quick save as. Let's call this data relay. Okay, so it still hasn't appeared. You'd expect a name to appear up there, but it doesn't appear until we actually publish it. So let's prove that that works. So we can go to publish and publish it to the Power BI service. Makes it sound like there's issues at data relay. That's not what's meant to be happening there, but it tells me that it's safe to remove it later. So that's published. Let's switch over to the right window. And let's go back into my workspace. And there we are. There's my data relay report. And for anybody that's using Power BI apps, as in they're taking a workspace and making it into an app, your paginated reports are included in that. Or can be included in that. They don't have to be. And there we are. There's our report. Okay. But if we notice, it's not sorted. And if we go to page view, just for a second. If you go to page view, so I've got two things to fix. Which I'm hoping I've got enough time to do. If you go to page 2, here is the delight of no headings. Okay, so let's go back into Report Builder. So we need to do sorting and we need to do headings. So into here, what we're going to do is I'm going to click into the table. Okay, now you could sort in a number of places as well, just like you could filter in a number of places. So we're gonna filter it. We're gonna sort here in the table. Okay, so it doesn't affect all of our data. So obviously, if you do it at the data set level, it affects everything that's using that data set. So we're going to, on the view ribbon, we're going to go to view grouping. That gives me a section down here. Okay, now here's the details, and I'm going to click on details, and I'm going to go to group properties. And under group properties, there is sorting. And I'm going to add in a sort, and the first thing we're going to sort it by is when it was reported. So A to Z and Z to A, ascending or descending. It doesn't do the clever things like oldest and newest and things. And then you could go for on there, which priority do we want to see first? So let's go for A to Z. So the highest priorities come first as well. So then we can click OK. So that does my sorting. Now I want to do my repeating rows. And this is a hidden feature, what you have to do is on the column groups, there's a drop down on the over here, and we go to advanced mode. And that shows you all these things called statics. And on the row groups, the static there is referring to the top row. And when I click that, over on the right-hand side, the tablix, I've never heard this phrase before until I came to Paginated Reports. The tablix member has properties, and they are repeat on new page. We change that to be true. Okay. And so that's done, and we've sorted it. So what we're now going to do is we're going to go to home, and we're going to republish it. Now, what you need to be aware of is that you can open a report straight from the service as well as from off your PC. So there are times you can end up publishing it and not having a saved version back on your PC, and it won't complain while if you do that. And if I then go back into here, let's just make sure that it's come through. So there we are. The earliest ones I've got reported are back in December. Okay. And if I go back on to page 2, there we are. We have titles across the top. Okay. So that's just a very limited version of what Paginated Reports can do. They are including new features. They did an update not long ago. I think there will be, as more use happens, they will put more work into Paginated Reports. There is on the roadmap a Paginated Reports add-in for Power BI, as in you'll be able to embed a Paginated report inside a Power BI report. And there's also brilliant, if I had time to demo it, I would, a video from Guy in a Cube of putting a link inside your original report that could link to a paginated report, which would be quite cool as well. So when am I meant to be finishing? When's my finish time?
You've got a few more minutes, Laura. I don't know how long the other demo you're hoping to get done will take, but you've probably got time for that, to be honest.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly demo putting in a parameter. Okay, so putting in a parameter into here to make it a personalized report, because obviously there's no point in putting in here a report that is putting out different reports filtered in different ways. You want one report you can reuse. So that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to do the one from Power BI because that one's going to go wrong and I haven't got that one planned, but I can do this one. So what we're going to do is we are going to, in issues list, I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to go into data set properties, and I'm going to do the first set of putting in a filter. Okay, and there's different ways you can do this. So the way if I go into Query Designer, if I come into Query Designer and I come into issues and I drag my status field up into the dimensions. Okay. And what we're going to do is what I'm doing is I'm going for the status field and I'm going to put that in as a parameter. So obviously it could have been software, it could have been priority, it could have been all sorts of things. And I'm going to say that's a parameter. Okay. Now the reason you've got 2 parameter boxes, don't get upset you can't tick the other one, is because of the operator I picked. There is an operator available which is a between. Okay, so there's a range. So that's why you'd have 2 parameters. And we're going to click OK. Give that a moment to sort itself out. And you see into there, it's now put that into the statement as to put in what the filter is. Okay, if I had done it through this filters method, it would work just as well, but it wouldn't be in the query. Okay, so the filter would be done in the report rather than being sent back to the data set, which makes a difference if you're doing straight to databases. So if I click OK into there, that also has put into here an issue status list. Okay, so it's put in a parameter that's going to come through. And when you run this report, it asks you for a status. It asks you to pick one. Okay, so I can go, let's go for on hold. That's not really big enough, is it? We can go on hold there. And then I can click view report. And it will run the report showing me only the on hold ones. Okay, so that makes it nice and easy to run. You can also if I go into a parameter, we can also go into the parameter piece. And in here, we'll be allowed, you'd be able to do various things. So there we are. We've got a data set. It's sorting out issue status, and it's working out the things that are in there. If you wanted a different kind of parameter that wasn't based off that, but was a typed in values, you could specify the values you wanted to put in there. You can also pick a default value. Okay, so I could specify that by default, I want it to be add a value of open. And what else? What's the other part that I normally do in here? The prompt. So I could put in a sentence into there for the prompt as to what I want it to be, and then click OK. And when that gets to run, you can see we've changed the label there. By default, it says open, and it will by default run. Okay, but then somebody can come up here and they can change it and pick a different one in there instead. Fascinated there's a blank one. I'm not totally sure there should be. But hey, I'm trying to work out which one, why we've got one in there that's blank. What else? So any questions?
So there's a question that's just come in, Laura, which is not specifically about the parameter stuff, but just more general, which is, can you include the rest of the original Power BI reports before the paginated section? So pages 1 and 2 from your original report, excluding the elephant, which we realise has some difficulties of its own, aren't showing on the paginated report. But can you include the rest of the paginated, the rest of the original report here as well?
Not as easily, no. So no, we can't do it straight away. But a paginated report can have in it charts, etc., etc. So therefore, you could have built it as a paginated report originally. Or if going back to the data set in here, we can in here coming back into here. I haven't done it in here, so it might take a moment. I can go and create app. So it wouldn't put it out as a printout, but it puts it that people don't have to go into 2 different places. Okay, so if I just go into the app, I've got to put all the things in there. Okay, It's an app. There you go. See. Yeah, I'm not allowed to write words on things. Work have learnt that don't let Laura write the description.
I think the question, if the way I'm reading it, I think the question sort of infers something about the relationship between the paginated report and the original report, and I'm getting the sense from what you're saying, what you've been talking about, that they're not sort of related to one another in that way. Is that fair?
Yeah, they're not related to one another. So let me just let that thing. Let's go back into oh no, so what you need to understand, okay, is Power BI reports have two parts. Okay, so they are connected, the paginated report. See, there you are. So that briefly showed it, and I've now done a back on it, haven't I? Let's hope that takes me vaguely to the right kind of place. If not, I will get there again. So what the Power BI report is connected to a data set, and the paginated report is also connected to the same data set, but the visuals inside the report are not accessible by the the paginated, because that's not what it's connecting to. It's connecting to the data set rather than.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go on.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, so effectively you've got two different sets of visualizations here that are sharing a data set.
Yes.
Which I think actually you've quite nicely segued into another question, or anticipated another question, which is, can you use Power BI charts within Report Builder, or are you limited to the Ssrs visuals?
You're limited to the visuals inside paginated reports, but there are some really nice, clever tricks that are, as paginated reports are coming up more and more, people are working out ways to use them. And there is a lovely blog. It's by somebody inside Microsoft, but they're being really shy about who they are. And I'm in the wrong browser, so it's not going to come up. Let me find it in my, let me bring up my PowerPoint. Next step.
While you're doing that, sorry, go on.
Next Step BI has got some lovely ways of doing visuals inside paginated reports. You were about to say.
I was just wondering, you did say that as interest is growing in these, Microsoft are improving features around this sort of area and what have you. Is this on a similar sort of update cadence to Power BI? Because users of Power BI desktop will be familiar with the monthly update cadence. Is that similar?
We're not at monthly cadence, but Microsoft, I do know, are because they can tell, because we publish the reports, because you have to publish a paginated report. They know exactly how many paginated reports are out there and how much they're being used. And
absolutely.
Obviously, since premium per user came up, there's an awful lot of people doing paginated reports. But simply by the number of people who are asking me to do various demos of paginated reports and various things, the interest is there. And Microsoft are very, very aware of that. And so therefore we'll be putting more work into it. So they've done a number of features. The bottom one down here is paginated reports in a day. If you can do it in a day, congratulations. I couldn't. My head hurt. I was like, oh my goodness, so much stuff. But it's been really well done, and it's not intended to be. And they've given it as a do it by yourself if you want to. They give you all the videos and everything, and they give you all the materials, and they give you access to a database to be able to do it, which is great. It's got some lovely pictures in it. Of course, the paginated report there. And Chris Finland and his team are incredibly keen to get people doing this, and that's what the Next Step BI is as well. And then Paul Turley, who is one of the data MVPs, has done some amazing work in his recipes ebook. He's done some really good stuff out there.
Great.
Any
Good
other
stuff.
questions?
I think that's about it for questions. There was a question I had, which I was just sort of wondering, and I hope I'm not bad-mouthing your laptop here. There were some moments when you were sort of waiting for responsiveness from the UI.
Yeah.
Is that a feature of the? Sorry, feature's perhaps the wrong word. Is that something that we can expect from the service, or?
No, I think my laptop is up to something.
Okay.
It's not Paginated Reports are not the fastest thing in the world. That's not what they're aimed at. They're not aimed at Power BI kind of style reporting, but they're normally faster than that.
Great.
I normally get a better response than that. They're aimed to be printed. They're not aimed to be looked at on a screen, and that is their aim. So, and by the way, the Power Automate taking a minute to export, no, that's normal. That's got nothing to do with my laptop. That is just, it takes a minute or two to export a 3-page report to a PowerPoint. So it's one of the issues. There are a number of us putting together stuff towards Paginated Reports. If you find anything cool, please nab me on LinkedIn or on Laura GB on Twitter.
Okay, great. Well, that's with that actually your contact details there. That's a reasonable place to wrap up, I think. Thanks so much, Laura. That was really interesting. There've been a couple of a number of comments in the chat and in Q&A just thanking you for your time and for a really informative, instructive presentation. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for doing data relay, guys.
What I will do, you're very welcome. It's lovely to have you. What I will do is just share some information now about feedback and what have you. We'd really love to get your feedback from this session. I'm hoping you can see my screen there now with some information about providing feedback.
I've also really just popped the link in the chat for you there, Richard.
Thanks very much, Chris. Thank you. As Chris says, there's a link here to an Office forms that you can fill in to provide feedback for today. If you submit your feedback by 10 o'clock tomorrow, you'll be entered into a competition to win a drone. So if that's not motivation, then I don't know what is. What's coming up? What's next, in fact? So tomorrow we're coming from Northumbria, and we've got two new sessions from Chris Taylor, who'll be talking about Kubernetes, in particular its application in the data platform, and from Kevin Feasel, who'll be talking a bit, as you can see here, about anomaly detection. So thanks very much for coming. Please do, as we say, provide your feedback, and do come tomorrow for the next instalment of Data Relay. Thank you so much. Is there anything else I need to add, Chris?
I think you're bang on. Absolutely.
Okay, good stuff. All right then. Thanks very much, everyone. That's it for us tonight. Same time tomorrow, and those two great new sessions. Thanks so much again to our sessions, our speakers tonight. They've been really, really good, really interesting. I've learned a lot. I hope you have too. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Aaron.